Hi, everybody. We'll get started in a couple minutes, just waiting for everyone to come in. Jenna, do you need help with the slides still, or?
No, I actually was able to pull it up. Thank you. My VPN decided not to work for a little while, but I got it up.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I guess we can get started and then let people fill in as they come. Well, thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. I'm just going to give a little introduction and then we'll get started. So Mrs. Jenna Morey is Executive Director of ReMerge Oklahoma, a gender responsive, trauma informed, strength-based program that keeps women in the community and out of prisons. She had previously served as the Vice President of Workforce Development at Goodwill Industries of Central Oklahoma. And before that, she led state efforts at the Oklahoma Office of Workforce Development. Today, she's just going to be talking to us about ReMerge and also the impact of COVID on her work. So Jenna, we're really excited to have you here and thank you for being here. So with that, we'll let you get started.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. We are a relatively small organization, but doing very big work in our community. ReMerge is a pre-trial diversion program. And so we accept people who come through the DA or referred by the DA's office, and they have nonviolent felony charges, and they are able to, so that's the first criteria for them to enter into our program. And the second is that they have minor children that they are able to reunite with. So that means that they have not already been adopted out into the foster, they have not already been adopted through DHS. So our moms typically, when they come to ReMerge, are facing a minimum of 7 years. But when they come through ReMerge, instead of going to prison, they can come and complete our program, which takes about 2 years. And walk away. What makes us really special is that they get to exit our program and graduate and have no charges following them. So those felony charges are dismissed. And so hopefully by the end of 2 years with us, we run a really holistic program and try to focus on addiction recovery, mental health, physical health, parenting skills, all kinds of different facets of their lives, so that when they graduate, they really are ready to go out into the world and be successful and live the lives that they were meant to live. So I'm just going to run through a little bit about an overview about our program. And I have a quick video to show you too, because it's way more powerful to get to hear from the people in our program than to hear me talk about them. So we'll just go through that and then feel free, pretty informal. So if you have questions as we go along, feel free to interrupt. So here are our Oklahoma incarceration statistics. 85% of female inmates in Oklahoma are mothers. 77% of those that are convicted have nonviolent crimes. 80% have sentences that are longer than they would have in other states. And there's a 14% recidivism rate, meaning that if you get out of prison, you're 14% likely to reoffend and get back into the justice system. The reason that this is a problem is because it affects not just those mothers, but families, and really tears at the fabric of our communities. So on any day in Oklahoma, more than 28,000 Oklahoma children have a parent in prison. So this is very typical for our moms, pathways to incarceration, history of trauma and violence. So 70% of our participants report that they had child physical or sexual abuse. 66% have experienced domestic violence. 62% have family dysfunction through having someone involved with alcoholism in their family. 66% were assessed with a moderate to high need for substance abuse treatment. 88% had a need for mental health treatment. 96% unemployed at the time of arrest. 75% had a need for education. And 63% reported reliance on social assistance at the time of arrest. And don't want to throw a bunch of numbers at you, but I think that that helps highlight that these are people in need of help. They need medical help. They need mental health intervention. They need substance abuse intervention. What they don't need is to be locked in prison for a nonviolent felony. They need treatment. Here is our race and ethnicity background. I'll let you look over that. As you can see, we have a very large Caucasian population. And that mirrors kind of what we're seeing in prison as well. One of the things that's interesting though, is you would kind of expect to see a higher African-American and Hispanic population represented in diversion, but we are not seeing that. And so a question for us that is worth exploring in the future is, because these participants have to be referred through the DA, that's their only pathway into diversion. Is that really reflective of the prison population, or is there some kind of institutional bias in terms of who is referred for diversion? And so that's a study that we'll be doing ourselves, working with our partners to make sure that we're providing this diversion option to all Oklahomans who are eligible for it. So here are just some basic kind of a profile of our moms in the program. They come to us at about 31 years of age. They have on average 2.3 children. They were on average 15 and a half years old when they left home. So if they don't get to us by the time until they're 31, that means that for many of them, they've had about 15 years outside of the workforce in addiction, in justice involvement, a lot of them living in homelessness. And so they've had 15 years of kind of living that life on the street or bed hopping or in chaos. And so it's 15 years of kind of work that we have to do once they get to us, of building trust with them and giving them kind of some consistency and stability. 39% of our participants have one or both parents who were incarcerated. A third are pursuing a GED. Around 30% have DHS involvement. So that would look like their kids are in the foster care system, or now that doesn't include, a lot of our moms also are in guardianship situations. So if there's a family or a friend that has been named a guardian of their child, this 30% only represents those who have active DHS involvement. And our moms have an average ACE score of 4.6. So just quick raise of hands. Anybody know what an ACE score is? Okay, good. Well, we'll have some good stuff to talk about as we go on. So ACE score is an adverse childhood experience, and it's a tally of the different types of abuse or neglect and other hallmarks that may have happened to someone in their childhood that end up having a huge impact, not only on their mental health, but on their physical health outcomes later in life. So abuse ACE indicators are physical abuse, emotional abuse, and sexual abuse. Neglect indicators are physical and emotional neglect. And then household dysfunction would be mental illness in their household, a mother who was treated violently, so domestic abuse situations, divorce, an incarcerated relative, or substance abuse in their family. So our moms, like we said earlier, have an average ACE score of 4.6. 15% of Oklahomans have an ACE score of 4 or above. Individuals with a score over 3 of ACE score are more likely to use alcohol or drugs, experience depression, and attempt suicide. They're 5 times more likely to misuse prescription drugs. They're 2 times more likely to be a heavy or chronic drinker or a binge drinker. and they're more likely to be obese, smoke cigarettes, and suffer from chronic illness like asthma, COPD, kidney disease, or other physical disabilities. So those ACE scores are really important for us to understand, not only for you all as providers, to understand what someone's childhood looked like, but then also how those end up playing out over long-term health effects later in their lives. So I am going to play a little video for you now that is directly from the mouths of our mothers that will help hopefully give you a better idea of what some of their experience was like and how ReMerge steps in and helps them chart a new path for themselves.
Almost a year and a half ago, I was sitting in Oklahoma County Jail. I was speaking with my daughter on the phone, and she said, "All I want is you here with me. That's all." And at that moment, she was crying, and at that moment, I knew that this was it. I hit my knees in the cell. And I begged, I just cried out, "Forgive me, and to guide me, and to give me another chance, no matter what, this be it. And I just forgive me, and give me another chance."
Addiction started with me at a young age. I was about 13. I remember just thinking that was really the path that I was supposed to be on. In 2015, my mom passed away and my whole world just kind of crashed down. I didn't really have any kind of means of figuring out how to do this on my own. And I knew that if I didn't do something quick with my life, that my children would be motherless, just like I was.
I was in a really abusive marriage for 16 years. I was in my addiction, and I became homeless, living under a bridge for 6 years. Thought I was going to die on the streets, and I was in and out of jail. Towards the end, I wanted to be sober, and I wanted to not be homeless, and I wanted to get my life back, but I had no idea how to do it. Because I knew if I went to prison, I was just going to learn more of what I didn't need to know, and if I went back to the streets, I was going to die.
I don't know, there's really no words that I can really describe how beautiful it is to be the mother that they always wanted.
I have custody of both of my sisters back now. They live with me full time. They're doing great. I haven't really done anything extra besides just lead an example for them of what doing the next right thing looks like. I like to look at that as my greatest accomplishment, really. It's just getting my act together so that I could be a role model for them, so they have what I didn't have when I was their age.
TJ said he forgave me, and that was just the greatest thing in the world.
ReMerge taught me how to love myself again, and learned that my past doesn't have to define who I am. Because now, I'm doing things today, like starting school, that I never thought I would do.
You learn about your emotions. You learn what your emotions, that you can listen to your emotions. You learn, how to deal with your emotions. And that's a big, big deal.
So it's like before, I had this black hole in my heart that couldn't be filled, that I tried to fill with drugs and alcohol. And ReMerge showed me that it could be filled with love.
Thank you for believing in the mothers of ReMerge, and thank you for believing in second chances, because you have saved my life, you've saved my kid's life. You're breaking the cycle, and you have no idea what it means to us.
Thank you. Thank you. This program saved my life. I was so scared to come into this program. And what I wanted from it was to get sober, but what they gave me was so much more. The biggest thing, though, is that I found myself.
All right, I always hate to follow them. So our women really do an incredible amount. We really view our work as serving as the structure and the stability and the resource provider, but it really is about them day after day putting in gritty, hard work to build a new life and to change old thinking patterns, and to get into mental health treatments, and to fight addiction and get into recovery. And it's hard. It's very, very hard work. And so as we talk a little bit later, that COVID on top of all of that gritty work has been a challenge for our moms for sure. So I'll tell you a little bit more about how we work. We're a 4-phase program. So someone, when they first come in, they would come into phase 1, and that's where we really do a lot of assessment and stabilization. They live on site with us for 90 days in a facility so that we can keep them safe, help them get out of old relationships that may have been bad for them, and really just spend a lot of time with them. There's a big tendency when you start our program to want to run. And we do see people run and come back. And we are people who give a lot of chances because that work to recovery is tough. And if they're going to fail or mess up or relapse, we want them to do that while they're with us so that they have a safety net around them. So that first 90 days is really about getting them in program, keeping them with us so that we have time to build some connection with them. Phase 2 is really about treatment and education. So providing them, we go through a lot of evidence-based curriculum on addiction recovery, on parenting, on understanding the trauma that they, helping them understand how their brains respond to trauma and why they may have been reaching out to alcohol and drugs to fix, like our participant said, fix that hole inside themselves. And then also to understand how addiction is playing out in their lives and helping them understand, not just the repercussions, but here's why my brain is doing this. We also work on parenting skills with them during that time, education and employment. So one of the biggest indicators for recidivism is stable employment. And so we work really hard to get them that GED, but also to provide them with career opportunities so that when they do graduate, they are able to go out into the world and have a family sustaining wage for their families and not get back into chaos as soon as they graduate. That third phase is about 6 months long. And it's really about demonstrating those skills. So in phase 2, in phase 1, they're with us living on site. Phase 2, they would go to a sober living house. So an Oxford house or something like that, that's kind of a group home where everyone is in addiction recovery. And then phase 3, they move out on their own. We're kind of letting their hand go a little bit, letting them get their sea legs. We pay for a lot of things still at this point. So we would help with dental, medical. We would subsidize their rent, but we're trying to start getting them to take more responsibility. And then in phase 4, we really want to see a mother living on her own, paying 100% of her rent, fully employed for 6 months before she graduates, and really standing on her own 2 feet and demonstrating that she has this. And of course, we're still there to help. Sometimes relapses still happen in that phase 4. And that's because people start to get scared that their safety net is going to be gone. And so they're kind of trying to test some of those waters, and that's okay. What we hope is not that someone never relapses again. Relapse might happen, but that they know how to deal with it without it totally consuming their lives. I mean, and of course, our hope is that that doesn't happen. But to say that it will never happen is not probably very realistic. And so what we want to do is provide them with the tools to manage their health. So our program is very individualized. They come in with all kinds of different histories, all different kinds of needs. So we do have, basic classes that each person would have to take, but then we also work with each mom according to her own situation. If she needs to be reunited with kids, if she has a DHS case involvement, if she needs a GED, if she is experiencing domestic violence in her relationships. And so how do we help her get out of that? And so really tailoring it to whatever their specific needs are. We have around 40 partners in Oklahoma City. that we work with to provide all kinds of services. And so we partner with Sunbeam to provide childcare. We partner with Positive Tomorrows, which is next door to us, which is a school for lower income or homeless children. North Care provides all of our individualized private therapy. So we do group therapy with our participants, but then North Care does individualized therapy with each participant. So really playing on the strength of ReMerge is that we don't try to do everything in-house because we know that we have a community of experts. And so working with that community to really connect them with the resources that they need. And we also at ReMerge have a full-time legal aid attorney on site who just works with our moms. We have someone from workforce who works directly with our moms. And then we have a full-time pardon and parole officer on site who works only with our moms. And it's pretty rare in most cases for people who are justice involved to have a relationship and love their probation officer. But our participants, that's what makes it special, is that she knows them, she's involved in their lives, and there's a connection there that instead of it being someone who's out to get you, it's someone who is really there on your side, pushing for you to get the life that you want. We also work with families. So a lot of times we will see that a mom and her partner have been involved in addiction together. And so we would work, while we don't directly service fathers or partners or you know, mother, maybe it might be a mother or parent, grandparent that is in addiction too. We don't directly serve them. We would also help connect them with resources, knowing that when we strengthen families, we strengthen a mom's ability to go out and be successful. And then finally, we have access to dismissal of charges, as I spoke about previously. That is huge to get to walk away after 2 years and avoid prison, have your life back, have your children back, have gained skills and gotten in recovery, and walk away without having that felony charge following you for the rest of your life. And as we know that people are 90% more likely to be successful in recovery if they have a continuing care program. And so we have a program of our graduates who get together, do family events, do events with their children, have recovery meetings. And so just supporting that long-term recovery and continuing care and building community with them, even after they graduate our program and are no longer court ordered to be there. So here's our outcome statistics. Over the last 10 years, we turned 10 this year in September. So we've been around for about 10 years. We've had 143 graduates for a total of 356 children that we've impacted. We have an 8% recidivism rate, which is much lower than the state rate, and a 62% completion rate. We've saved the state of Oklahoma $32 million by rehabilitating people rather than incarcerating people in prison, with much better outcomes for their lives. And that's kind of the overview of ReMerge, and that's a lot. So I'm happy to take any questions you might have about how we work. Didn't want to get too in the weeds with you, but I'm happy to take questions. As for COVID, like I said earlier, COVID has been tough on our moms, and it's been tough on our business model. So our business model for doing the work that we do is all about connection. We have to be close to them. We have to know the ins and outs of their lives. We have to, we have to build trust. We are viewed when they first start our program as an extension of the justice system, for which most of our moms have very, very little trust with the justice system. A lot of them have been failed in multiple ways by the system, by DHS involvement. So there's a lot of mistrust. And so building that connection with them when they first get there is super important, and then keeping it. A lot of our work is surrounded by creating self-worth, or helping mothers to create and build their own self-worth and believe that they're worth getting into recovery, and that they can do it. And if they just, like she said on the video, do the next right thing, that they can change their lives. But all of that has to happen in person, which has made COVID has made that really hard. So when we went to shelter in place for 2 months, we saw our relapse rates increase. So our moms have to drug test on a random system. Some of them drug test 4 times a week, some of them drug test 2 times a week. But we saw our relapse rates skyrocket because people had stress on top of stress, so compounding stress. It has been difficult for them. There are already very few childcare options. And so when schools close down, trying to figure out how to be in your diversion program, how to achieve all of your required things that you have to do for our program, your drug testing, showing up to court, managing your DHS case, managing a job, and then having kids at home all day, all of a sudden, has been a huge stressor on them. So increased relapse, stressors with childcare. And then, when you think about this population, people who are in poverty, they don't have cars. So where are they? They're on public transportation. So just that increased risk of being in situations around crowds where they are more exposed to COVID has been difficult too. We also are seeing quite a bit of resistance in our population for getting the vaccine. A lot of misinformation out there. Some believe in the microchip, and others just, they might vape and not think a thing about they have no idea what's in that vape oil, but be very resistant because they don't know what's in a vaccine. So I'm not putting something I don't know what that is in my body. And so it's really trying to make that connection for them that, hey, you take things all the time and you don't know, what's in it. There's a lot of data that shows that it's safe now, and just trying to normalize that it's okay to fear the unknown, but it's not unknown anymore. We have a lot more data that shows, that we can talk about the people's outcomes after the vaccine. The unknowns of COVID are much greater. Those long-term health effects from getting COVID are much greater. So we're trying to, yesterday we had court. So we have a judge that's specifically assigned to our docket. And right now, because of COVID, they're coming to our building to do court. So we had him talk to them, and we've been showing them videos and trying to get participants or graduates who have had the vaccine, talking to them about it. So really trying to hit them from a bunch of different angles to normalize the vaccine. So I will keep you all, a lot of them are not eligible yet, but pray for us that we can get our community vaccinated, and that our efforts to kind of educate on that front make a difference. So that's kind of where we are with COVID. We've been really lucky. Just this year, we moved into a brand new, huge building. And previously we were in a 4-room basement, and we just moved into a brand new $10 million building in November of last year, which ended up being a huge blessing. If we had not had this space, we would not have been able to conduct program in person and socially distance. And so it ended up just being perfect timing. We didn't know that we were going to need that much space, but it ended up being just what we needed because of social distancing. And we were able, for the most part, to stay in person. And like I said, that connection and being in person is just so important to our ladies and to their recovery. So with that, I think I'll stop there and just see what questions you guys might have.
I actually had a question. You actually just talked about having a new facility, which I'm sure gives you like more resources and access and space. And I was just kind of curious because resources are pretty limited. If there's like there's like a cap with how many women you can have in the program at any one time.
Yes, so we can, at our current funding levels for the last few years, we can take about 75 people a year. And because that means at any one time that we have 50 in the program because they're rotating out through those phases. So we have 2 graduations a year. If you're interested, I would highly recommend that you guys follow us on social media, and we're actually live streaming graduation now. And it's super powerful to get to hear their speeches so they all get up and give a speech. And it's really powerful to get to hear their journey and where they came from and what they're hoping for now that they're out of addiction.
Thank you.
Jenna, thank you so much for sharing about ReMerge, and the work you guys are doing is really amazing. I just had a question about funding. You already touched on it a little bit, but I was wondering if where you got funding from primarily, and whether there was any state or federal contributions provided the huge savings you're providing the state.
Yeah. I want to put you on a speaking tour for me now. You can go make that point. See how much we're saving the state. So we are largely privately funded through grants and donations. We do have a little bit of state funding through SNAP ENT. So the employment and training program through SNAP can do a reimbursement for education and employment classes. So we get a little bit from that. We did get some PPP funding this year, but generally we've been pretty heavily reliant on private funding. So private individual donations, corporate donations, and private grants. That's not a sustainable funding model. We really could use some additional state funding or county funding. We're going to be going after a Department of Mental Health federal grant potentially. And there's also a program called Pay for Success that the state legislature put some money into. And so we're applying for that in March. And basically how that would work is you would have private donors who give you money up front, and then based on your performance, the state would pay you back money based on performance. So our performance indicators would be the number of graduates, and then how many of those graduates had gotten back reoffended at year 1, year 2, and year 3. And we would get performance payments based on those who didn't reoffend in that 3-year period. So we're really hoping that comes through and that we are aggressively pursuing options to get more state or federal funding. That's the only way that ReMerge will probably ever grow and be able to serve more people. Not just because we need the resources to serve the ladies, but because we need the bodies on our team, the labor force on the ReMerge team, to be able to serve more people. And you just need a dedicated, steady stream for that.
Well, if there aren't other questions, there were some questions that were previously submitted as well that I could share. Some students were curious as to what would be the most effective way for people in the medical field to become advocates for these women and just provide support. I know you already touched on sort of vaccine education, and that's probably a big component, but are there any other major ideas that you had?
I think women's health is a huge area for us. So we're very lucky to have some partners who come in and do well woman checks. A lot of these women have not been taking care of their health for a number of years. And so just getting them back we know that people who have health issues are also more likely to relapse or get back into addiction because they are trying to deal with health issues through drugs. And so, having those community resources out there, having volunteers who are willing to provide their time to do some of that basic wellness and wellness education of how important it is and sometimes how simple it is important. So I think normalizing taking care of yourself is a good thing and a preventative thing. And that trickles down not just for our mom's health, but to their children's health as well.
Does anyone else have any questions they wanted to share?
You guys are a quiet bunch.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just kind of close out then. ReMerge is a really beautiful example of what the justice system could be. When you look at the outcomes of people who are they're rotting in prison, they're not getting any better. There's very little programming available. You're not learning any skills. Drugs are rampant throughout the prison system in Oklahoma. And so you might be still in active addiction in prison. And the opportunity for the DA, the judge, our program, and public defenders to come together and create a solution for people to change and better their lives. And it changes not just their lives, it changes the whole trajectory of their children's futures. And that really is what justice reform and the criminal justice system could look like. And ReMerge is a wonderful example in our community of what rehabilitation, the power of rehabilitation over incarceration.
Thank you. Jenna, there's a question in the chat that says, how is ReMerge looking to expand next?
So programming wise this year, we're expanding our education and employment initiatives. So ReMerge moms, as part of their graduation, are required to have a job, and they're required to have stable employment for 6 months. But because they don't have a lot of previous work history, some of those jobs that they're able to get would be pretty minimum wage, working at, in fast food or working at a convenience store. Well, I don't think I have to tell you guys that can seem pretty hopeless pretty quickly. It's pretty much paycheck to paycheck, if it even meets that. And for a lot of our moms, they would be one flat tire away from being back into chaos. So what we're really working on is moving away from talking about jobs to talking about career pathing. And making sure that our moms have, so we started out just a few months ago, we started a program called Catalyst Cookies. So when you come into phase 1, our moms are running a new cookie business that you can go to catalystcookies.org and order cookies from our moms. And they are baking them, but they're also doing the inventory management, the customer service, the social media. And so they're learning all of those skills. And the idea behind that is that they get a work experience in a really safe environment, so that they're ready when we start sending them to work. They've had a good, safe first work experience and gained some of those skills. And then we're also working with some partners right now on creating new career pathways for them. So one is with a coding partner to provide them with software and coding training. So it's a 12-week training, and then they would be able to go and get a job in coding. We have a partner, we have a mystery donor, which I think this will excite you guys. All the details aren't finalized yet, but we have a mystery donor who wants to fund nursing scholarships for our moms. And so fully covered, and they would also give them a job at Integris while they're working through their schooling. So that could be a huge life changer for our families to go and have a nursing degree. And I think that the option for them there too is, even if they don't make it all the way through a nursing degree, they could stop at an associate's and still have a health related associate's degree. And then we're also working on an automotive repair technician pathway. And that is because it's a low barrier trades pathway where you can go in, do another 12-week class, and do something with your hands. Some people are more tactile, and that's kind of the work they want to do. So we're really trying to provide 3 distinct pathways where they can be in a career, not just in a job. So that's one of the ways that we're growing, is career pathing. Another is we are growing that continuing care program. So really trying to provide more programming for graduates and make sure that now that we're in this new building, we have new, bigger space where we can do events with them. That we are continuing to build that community up so that there's long-term recovery options. And then eventually, like I said, if we were to score some state or federal funding, we'd love to bump up to serving 100 women a year versus 75, but that will take some substantial funding to be able to fund the labor cost for ReMerge.
Thank you so much. And there was just another question that in the chat that said, what would you say is the biggest obstacle or most difficult aspect in rehabilitating these mothers?
My funny answer is men. No, I think, jokes aside, sometimes bad relationships are really, really hard to let go of, and can just, whether it is with a male partner or old friendships or, you know, family members, it's a huge obstacle for us because that's who they know, that's who their relationships are with, and it's very easy to get drugged back in. And then I think in general, a lot of our moms have experience, you know, if you think back to those statistics that I shared earlier, a lot of them have had childhood adverse experiences. So they are not able, they've never had it modeled for them that their life could be different. And so helping them build new glasses to see the world with, that life can be different. Here are all the options open to me and my kids of how life could be. That takes the full 2 years that they're with us to build that piece of it is difficult, and it's also incredibly meaningful.
Well, if we don't have any other questions, I just wanted to say thank you again for donating your time and coming to share with us. I think a lot of us weren't familiar with ReMerge before this, and the work you're doing is just really, really amazing. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me, and you all go out and be amazing doctors and do amazing things for our community.
Thank you. And I just wanted to remind the students who are getting the voucher credit just to fill out the survey after. And Jenna, thank you again. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys. Take care and stay warm.
Okay, you too.